the answer to the biggest mystery isn't coming from the deep recesses of outer space, but from a shift in consciousness right here on Earth. For nearly 2 decades, the intelligence community, NASA, Vatican, and the highest echelons have quietly coalesced around one man in North Carolina. A man who doesn't just see the phenomenon, he talks to it, and it talks back. A man that you've probably all heard of. But tonight, we're going to be looking at some of the things that he was told by the lady, these predictions. And we're going to look at today how these predictions are coming true in real time. And it's shocking when you actually look at the timeline of when he said these things that he was told by the lady. And then you look at today and the things that are actually happening, there is an eerie link. There is an eerie parallel. In 2007, Chris Bledsoe was given a message by a divine feminine entity known simply as the lady. And this message was dismissed by critics as delusion. Even today, there's a lot of controversy. We are watching her prophecies unfold in real time, from specific geopolitical conflicts to astronomical alignment, tied to the Sphinx and the star of Regulus. The clock she set is ticking down. Look, when the History Channel's Beyond Skinwalker Ranch went to Chris, they hooked Chris up to these medical grade EEGs, and he was told to call these orbs in, and he did. And what they proved was unthinkable. When the orbs appear, Chris Bledsoe's brainwaves change, and they change before the lights even manifest. This isn't just a sighting, it is a biological connection, some type of consciousness link that he has with the phenomenon. And they speak to him telepathically, and they proved that he was communicating with these orbs. And tonight we crossed the threshold. We are looking past the metallic nuts and bolts craft, and we're touching the third rail of the phenomenon: consciousness, prophecy, and the high-ranking officials who are terrified of what happens next. So welcome back to UAP Truth 33. We got a big show. Let's dig in.
Where this star, which is a blue star, of Regulus appears on the horizon in front of the Sphinx, and it will be red.
And you know what? This is right.
That's what she said.
I've actually spoken to astronomers. This is the phenomenal thing about this.
Yeah, and she said it'll be red. And when that happens, it would mark a shift into a new knowledge, not an apocalypse. That's what she told me. It doesn't mean Jesus is coming back. There's a new knowledge that's coming. What is that? Is it under the pyramids they've discovered something? Is it the Hall of Records? Is it disclosure?
Now, Chris, I've got to put myself in the position of the splenetic debunkers. They're practically wetting themselves right now. They're so angry.
I love it. I love it.
They're sitting there at home going, oh my God, this is such drivel. How incredulous is cooked up listening to this Chris Bledsoe guy. Why couldn't we believe it? Is it possible she's deceiving you? Even if she is a divine being, an advanced being, couldn't she just be pulling your leg?
Well, she could be, but I can tell you this. When I told this to the government about 2026, I just repeated what she told me. They immediately put remote viewers on it. And all of a sudden, all the remote viewers are saying, oh my God, 2026, 2027, something is going to happen.
Who say they can confirm they've seen this phenomena happening right in front of them.
I will tell you this, and I can't say the names on TV here because of respect, and it's not time yet. But just during Easter, I had 8 of the most scientists, PhDs all, that run their departments. And if I said their names, you'd know real quick who they are. They all came and they all had experiences with me. They went right back to Washington, D.C. on the 1st when Lou and they was up speaking and they held their...
Lou Elizondo.
Yes, yes. One of the ladies was in Congress. She's on the board. She's part of the UAP board. She was at my house and experienced this with me. She stood up and testified and shared it with Congress and shared 6 high-definition videos that I supplied.
And yet, as far as I can see, Congress is completely stuck in the mud at the moment on this issue. There's not a lot happening.
I think they're looking my way.
You think so?
But to understand Chris Bledsoe and to understand these predictions that the lady, this angelic being that he had this experience with, to understand these things, you have to understand how it all started. And it started back in 2007 on a fishing trip in Cape Fear River. And at the time, Bledsoe was enduring an incredibly difficult period in his life. He was facing severe financial ruin from the housing market crash and suffering from debilitating Crohn's disease. And he went down to the riverbanks near Fayetteville, North Carolina, to fish with his teenage son and 3 construction employees when this encounter occurred. The event became a major cornerstone of modern UAP research due to the intense high strangeness surrounding it and the multiple witnesses, including accounts of a multi-hour missing time, mysterious orbs, and subsequent visits by high-level officials from CIA, NASA, and the military, and the sudden complete remission of his Crohn's disease symptoms. It was as if he was totally cured. And during this experience, he claimed that he just wanted to take a walk. They were fishing, there was, a fire, and he just went to go take a walk to clear his head, and he was saying a prayer, and he seen 2 objects, and he kind of got spooked. I believe he said he tried to hide at one point, just when he thought he was going to try to get away from the objects is whenever the encounter happened. And he had like 4 hours of missing time. And when he went back to the campsite afterwards, his son actually was having his own experiences at the same time that his father was abducted. And he claimed that he's seen these small beings with red eyes. And one of the spooky aspects of the story was that he claimed that the being, they would blink their eyes slowly one at a time, and that the eyes were red. So that's just, it's a wild story. And then, there's this almost like a chase. They make a break for it. They're taking off, seeing these things in the sky when they're trying to get home in a truck. And everybody's freaking out. And then they started having these experiences in the home after, that they got back home. And they were seeing orbs in the house. They were seeing beings throw people. There was like a story about a burning tree. And anyway, all this culminated into eventually Chris having an experience where he sees what he called the lady. And that they took him on like this virtual tour of like Egypt and the Midwest in America. And he saw like apocalyptic visions. And he was told a lot of things about when Israel and Iran start launching rockets at each other, that these orbs are going to rise out of the ocean. And that in 2026, the star Regulus is going to rise in the gaze of the Sphinx. And at that time, there's going to be this new awakening. And you're going to watch some clips, and he says, man, disclosure's coming in spring of 2026. And the reason why I'm doing this episode is we're looking back on these predictions that Chris Bledsoe made. And isn't it funny that they've all come true so far? And what does that mean for the future? What does that mean for 2026 and 2027? Do we have an apocalyptic future? Or is there an alternate timeline? So stick with me. It's going to be a hell of a show, man.
For the first time, it was one of the first occasions I'd heard scientists talking candidly about things that the splenetic debunkers would have completely cried their hearts out over years ago to even talked about. There's a huge resistance, isn't there?
There is, but there's a movement within the government that sees it as a spiritual side.
Sure.
The DoD side, which is protect our country, right? So they're kind of rallying around these new congressmen, and I think you're going to see movement and money given to research.
Do you think disclosure is inevitable?
Yes.
And when you say disclosure, what do you mean?
Well, what can they tell us? They're never going to give you a machine because it's classified. They can't, because it can never declassify it. It would be an act of Congress and the whole Air Force or whoever has this stuff. But I think you're going to get an announcement, maybe by the president or somebody high up in his cabinet, that people, because until President Trump says it's real, nobody's going to believe it.
I don't know if people would believe it even if President Trump said it was
May
real.
May not, but that's okay. There's 3 kinds of people. People that can see, people that can't see, people that you can show them and they'll see.
You can lead a horse to water, but...
you can't make them drink.
Yeah. When you see this divine Mother Mary being, is it a humanoid creature?
Yeah.
The timeline given to Chris Bledsoe is correct. We're not just standing on the precipice of a new chapter in human history. We're looking at the total rewriting of the human story. When true disclosure happens, when the existence of these entities and our fundamental connection to them is finally laid bare for all to see, it won't just be a headline, it'll be a seismic shockwave that rattles every single pillar of modern civilization. Because I want you to just think about that, right? How is this going to affect our society, our education, our economics, our religion, our political systems, our governments? How is the knowledge that we aren't alone, that we share the universe with these entities? How is this going to affect all of that? Governments will have to face the ultimate audit. The illusion of absolute state sovereignty dissolves. The moment leadership has to admit that they're not the highest authority on this planet and never were, the geopolitical chessboards that we fight over today will seem entirely insignificant in the shadow of a cosmic reality. I don't even know how they would tell the public, but I think that they're releasing these files and they're trying to do it slowly to get us acclimated so that it doesn't cause such a seismic shift whenever it all comes out. But I think no matter how they do it, there's still going to be a huge, a massive effect. Because if you look at it, right, our faiths, religions, they won't necessarily crumble. They'll face a profound metamorphosis, right? These entities have been interacting with us since antiquity, right? Shaping our texts, manifesting as the lady or divine feminine beings or other beings of light. Some say demonic. And the line between theology and technology may begin to completely vanish when we realize that we're consciously connected to these beings. We will have to confront the reality that our spiritual histories are deeply intertwined with an intelligence we are only just beginning to scientifically measure. And I think that is going to be one of the most difficult hurdles for religion, Vatican, to overcome. And I think the Vatican's getting out in front of it. I think that they're beginning to they're releasing statements surrounding extraterrestrial life and the possibility of it, and that it would be part of God's creation. So I think that the Vatican is getting out in front of it, but some of these other Christian sects aren't really doing that. They're labeling it as demonic. But in our universities and schools, the implications are staggering, right? Our biology textbooks, our physics equations, our historic timelines, they all become obsolete overnight. We will have to teach a generation that consciousness isn't just a byproduct of the human brain, but a fundamental force of nature that can interact with the sky above us. How do you teach people that? Education will shift from studying a dead mechanical universe to learning how to participate in a living conscious one. Now, I find that to be, enlightening. That's an optimistic outlook on how it will affect education if they deal with this in a positive manner. But then we got to look at the global economy and this zero-sum game of scarcity, fossil fuels and centralized control facets, banks, because they're going to face an immediate expiration date, right? These entities can manipulate space-time and manifest energy at will, and we really do have access to free energy. And if our own biology is the key to interacting with that system, the very concept of wealth and resources changes, and it changes forever. We'll move from an economy of extraction to an era of limitless potential, possibly a balance, living in balance with the earth like I believe that we were meant to be. Will we get away from this economy and fossil fuel economy and, everything's based on scarcity and the money's not backed by anything? Sometimes I feel like money's black magic. I really do. It's not backed by anything. It only has value because we agree that it has value. But anyway, the gatekeepers aren't hiding this reality because they're protecting advanced aircraft. Although that could be a possibility, they're hiding it because they cannot control a humanity that knows its true place in the universe. The alignment is here. Timeline is active. We're watching these predictions play out real time, coming true. And the truth is no longer out there. It's right here waiting for us to wake up to.
Giving me classified briefings on not so much on UAP, but on the topic of the phenomenon itself, where it exists, how it manifests itself, and believe me, they don't know much. But what they do know is it was startling to me because I had been studying this for 40 plus years, and as I explained to somebody recently, it's one thing to read a book about it, maybe talk to somebody about it. But when somebody sits you down and said, well, I just conducted, X amount of years at a national lab on this particular issue, and here's what we found, and you realize that the information, the data is true, it's real. The veil just sort of falls off. And they go, uh-oh, I'm looking at another interpretation of reality here that I never really considered before. That's the startling piece.
When we talk about profs, it's easy to get lost in ancient texts or vague, symbolic riddles. But what happens when prediction is hyper-specific, tied to exact geopolitical events, and plays out right before our eyes on the nightly news? And I want to talk about what Chris Bledsoe was told by the lady, because he always said this isn't his prediction. This is just what the lady told him. And it goes all the way back to 2007 and how those dominoes are falling real time. Because we're seeing, Chris had said that when Israel and Iran exchanged rockets, we would see orbs rising out of the waters. And what happened? In the winter of 2024 and 2025, Israel and Iran exchanged rockets, and we had the New Jersey drone flap. And most people were saying that there was anomalous orbs in that. And it also happened in Europe. So for years, Bledsoe quietly shared a specific warning he received from the entity that a major catalyst for a world age shifting event would be a direct, unprecedented exchange of rockets and missiles between Israel and Iran. And that when this happened, orbs would appear. Now think about that. For decades, the shadow war between those two nations was fought through proxies. But in April of 2024, the world watched in absolute shock as Iran launched a direct ballistic missile strike from its own soil toward Israel. And this was going on all through the winter of 2024 and 2025. There was counter strikes and struggles, and Palestine was going on. And then we saw these orbs appear and this drone flap in New Jersey. And it was a terrifying geopolitical escalation that we're watching happen again today. But those tracking the Bledsoe lore, it was a chilling direct hit, nearly 2 decades prior. The lady's clock hadn't just started ticking, it was ringing loud and clear. And then you fast forward to today, and I'm going to show you this interview he did with Ross Coulthart at the end of last year, where he was saying that in the spring of 2026 is when disclosure would happen. That either the president would come out and say it, or there would be a release of files, and that people would awaken to the fact that we aren't alone, that we share this planet with another intelligence. But the prophecy didn't stop in the desert. Timeline explicitly linked this Middle Eastern escalation to a sudden massive surge of the phenomenon, manifesting globally. And I think we're seeing that today, specifically in the skies over Europe and the intense, highly publicized waves right here in the United States, namely New Jersey. Even in LA during the fires, there was a lot of sightings of anomalous objects in the sky. Remember, the late 2024 and early 2025 drone panic that shut down airspace. It triggered military investigations. There was FBI hearings. It left government officials completely tight-lipped. They wouldn't tell us what it was. And the mass witnesses described silent glowing orbs hovering over sensitive infrastructure, moving in formation that defied any known drone tech, and disappearing into thin air. There was accounts that a boat with the sheriff's office and I believe the Coast Guard was followed by orbs in the ocean. This wasn't a random anomaly. According to the data Bledsoe was given, these orbs are sentinels. They are a physical manifestation of a consciousness shifting into our reality as the old age breaks down and the new age is beginning. And they're showing up in mass numbers because the gateway, I guess, is opening, right? The veil is thinning, in my opinion. And he made other claims, apocalyptic visions that he saw all over the United States, a huge wave from the Pacific rolling over the United States. He didn't know if it was from the past or future, but he had the vision. We aren't just looking at random UFO sightings anymore. We're looking at a coordinated real-time deployment. The intelligence community isn't tracking Chris Bledsoe because they're curious about lights in the sky. They're tracking him because the timeline he was given is matching their own internal classified metrics. So in other words, their data points are fitting his data points, right? The rockets flew, the orbs arrived, and the world is running out of time, and they can't ignore what's coming next. Because if we do, this could turn out real bad. And Chris went on the Basement podcast with the Live Files, and he said that there's two timelines, but that there's these elites who are actually trying to bring about Armageddon, to kind of script the book of Revelations, which is just chilling. But that if we choose life, and that it's up to us, we can change the outcomes of this. That this isn't locked in concrete. It's not set in stone just yet. But he also said he believed that there's aliens and nuts and bolts ships checking out military bases. He thinks there's a multitude of phenomena going on. So I'm really interested in Chris Bledsoe. He wrote the book UFO of God. His son got a really great podcast called Bledsoe Said So. I recommend everybody go check it out. I'll probably leave a link in the description, even though I didn't use any, content from Bledsoe Said So, but just to give him a shout out. I think that Chris Bledsoe is a really great individual. I think he means well, and I think he's a genuine experiencer, and he has a lot of wisdom. But it's just it's wild how these predictions that he made years ago are playing out in real time. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about all this. I hope you like the clips. Please hit the like, subscribe, share it to a friend, share it to 2 friends. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.